The House Judiciary Committee releases its new report finding that Soros-backed Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg and Democrat donor Judge Juan Merchan violated the constitutional and legal rights of President Trump in his New York criminal trial. Among other points, the report lays out the following procedural defects. Quote, Bragg's unconstitutional and unprecedented Russian nesting doll theory of criminal liability, in which the jury never had to reach unanimity as to each element of the criminal offenses, and Bragg's usurpation of the federal government's exclusive authority to prosecute alleged violations of federal campaign finance laws, and the Biden-Harris administration's refusal to intercede to protect federal interests. Judge Merchan's failure to recuse himself for manifest political bias against President Trump, the unconstitutional gag order he imposed on President Trump during the trial, Judge Merchan's admission of plainly inadmissible, irrelevant, and unfairly prejudicial testimony against President Trump, and Judge Merchan's refusal to permit former Federal Election Commission Chairman Bradley Smith to testify as to the meaning and complexities of the Federal Election Campaign Act, end quote. The committee report doesn't tell us anything we didn't already know, but it's nice to see it officially recognized in the congressional record. The bigger question now is what to do about it. Exposing corruption hasn't really gotten the right anywhere thus far, and not enough House Republicans showed up to even support Georgia Congressman Andrew Clyde in order to pass his amendment in the House Appropriations Committee to defund the active lawfare that's still going on against President Trump in the form of Special Counsel Jack Smith's office. As former State Department cyber intel agent Mike Benz argued in reaction to that amendment failing, infuriating. This could all be over already if the GOP wanted it, but they bring wiffle bats to a hardball game. So what is the game plan here? We just keep finding ourselves in nonstop outrage cycles after more and more corruption is uncovered and exposed, but then we fail to do anything about it? Perhaps the strategy is just to hope and pray that the courts set everything right for us. Which brings us to this next headline from the Washington Examiner about where all the Trump cases now stand as a result of the Supreme Court's immunity ruling. Joining us now to discuss is Paul Kamenar, counsel for the National Legal and Policy Center. Paul, thanks for being back tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Kara. My pleasure.
Great. So sentencing on President Trump's New York criminal trial was supposed to happen, I think, around this week, right? Around early July. Now it's sometime in September. So how might the SCOTUS ruling affect how that all pans out?
Yeah, it impacts it very big. I'll tell you why. Because the Supreme Court ruled that President Trump has immunity for official acts. He has absolute immunity for those that are within his core powers, and presumptive immunity for things that involve his exercise of presidential duties. Now, the attorneys went back to the Judge Merchan in the New York case and said, hey, wait a minute. You heard testimony from Hope Hicks, who was a White House aide, and emails and discussions she had with then President Trump. And that's part of his official duties. So that testimony has to be thrown out, as well as some other testimony and evidence. So now what Judge Merchan said is, okay, this sentencing that was supposed to happen actually 2 days from now, on Thursday, he put off till mid-September. And interestingly enough, he said, we want to have postpone the sentencing to see if even we need to have sentencing. Oh, my God. And he's signaling that maybe this whole case may be thrown out, because if, in fact, the testimony of Hope Hicks and some others have to be excised from the trial, and if that was substantially affecting the jury's deliberation, then the whole conviction goes out the window.
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of big developments now happening because of the Supreme Court ruling, and it really affects all the cases that are being waged against President Trump. So as we're talking about the New York criminal trial with the sentencing coming up and perhaps the whole thing being overturned, but then also Special Counsel Jack Smith, right? He has his J6 case. He's got the classified documents case. How are his cases now affected by the Supreme Court ruling, since it was, specifically in regards to his cases?
Right. It was involved, in fact, the January 6th case here in D.C., and that was the case that was on appeal to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court is going to send that case back to Judge Chutkan, who's handling it, and that'll be done in the next, I would say, 20 days or so.